All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Raising the New Earth. Hi, Noah.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, we are so grateful you are here listening to us today, and we are super excited to introduce you to today's guest, Christine Eartheart. So Christine is an energy healer, a life coach, and well-versed in many different healing modalities, and she is the co-founder of the Center for Thriving Relationships with her partner, Brent. And they truly have built a thriving practice that has supported thousands of couples through coaching sessions, couples retreats. They've got online courses, really focused on helping couples to really break free from whatever unhealthy patterns might be holding them back so they can experience love, joy, and connection. So the Center for Thriving Relationships has been featured in ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS News. Christine has done a TEDx talk that has been shared all around the globe about cultivating more joy, and something that we can all hold through our relationships. And on a personal note, I am extra excited to have Christine with us today. So Christine and I were friends way back in early elementary school. And I will say that all of the memories that I have from our friendship, I am not surprised at all that Christine is sharing her light in such a big and impactful way. And I am so happy and grateful that she is here today to share with all of you. So Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Brooke and Noah, and for having me here. And I'm so grateful. It is an extra special treat for me too to get to connect with you and your beautiful heart and reunite and to get to meet you, Noah.
Same. Yeah, I know you have so much to share. So I will start with, I'd love to hear more of the story of what made you and your partner, Brent, start the center, and just kind of, where it kind of got its origins. I think that one thing that's so cool is that I see from your work is just how much relationships can be a catalyst for your own personal growth. So like what a fertile ground to do so. And I see that you all really value that. And so I'd love to know more of just kind of your story and where it's taken you.
Well, thanks for asking. So Brett and I have been together over 20 years now and never anticipated that we would be supporting other couples. And so when we first got together, we both had actually been doing lots of personal growth and, meditating and kind of spiritual personal development. And we got together in the beginning of our love story, like many are, not all, but many stories are. It was like a homecoming. Like I felt seen and heard in a way I never had before. And it was just sparkling. We gave each other our best and saw each other's best. And then fast forward a few years and we suddenly own a home together and we're raising our young son, who is my stepson, and a beloved part of my life. And we had different backgrounds and in parenting and different perspectives about it, different perspectives about managing finances and household chores and all the things. And so even though it started off wonderfully, we just found ourselves getting into these kind of repetitive, conflicted kind of conversations about things without knowing the way out. And we really got to a place we thought, I think maybe our differences are just irreconcilable. And so one night on the couch that I'll never forget, we turned and looked towards each other and we realized like we have many wonderful moments together and this isn't really bringing out our best anymore. And so we realized that we could kind of bless each other on our separate paths, or we could keep doing things how we always have been doing with hopes that like maybe it would get better, or we could dive in and learn everything we possibly could about relationships, because relationships, like you said, they're like uniquely humbling because they bring to the surface all of the unconscious parts of us. So any of our unhealthy patterns get like magnified in relationships, any of our unconscious fears, our old wounds, like these precious parts of ourselves, but there's no place for any of it to hide when we come into a romantic relationship, which is the best thing ever, can also be the most challenging thing. But of course, it's like this incredible opportunity for growth. So that night we ordered Truly. I wish we had a picture of it because we ordered this tall stack of like books. And at the time it was like DVD courses and CDs. And we just decided like, let's give it a go and devote every Friday night to, we called it conscious date night. So we were just committed every Friday. We would like learn something new about our relationship and apply it. We would just spend a few hours together. Like, let's just read these books. And our relationship was like utterly transforming. It really felt like the lights were turning on, and finally we're like, oh my gosh, that was what was going on underneath. Like, that's what you really needed all along. And so it was so transformational and we started attending couples retreats around the country, that it really was like, we can't not share this with the world, because relationships tend to be the area of life that we enter into relationships for life to be easier and more enjoyable, which is so beautiful. And then so often they become the source of like so much pain and frustration and heartache. And it's not typically because of the lack of love. It's just like a lack of tools and role models. And so it's really the area when our relationship is strong, it spills over to like every other area of our lives. And so we already both had private practices. Brett's a licensed psychotherapist, and I'm have been a long time coach and energy healer. And so we started like bringing couples together, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's just the greatest catalyst for growth. And so then we started doing the work together. We'd be in sessions together, and we were just falling so fully in love with working with couples. We call them like human growing machines, because again, it's like, it's where we can just do the deepest work. We have like such capacity for transformation and like seeing parts of ourselves we couldn't otherwise see. And also for like the goodness to get multiplied. So much more joy and so much more love and so much more connection, fulfillment when it was going well. And so then we decided over 10 years ago to open this Center for Thriving Relationships, and I've really dedicated our lives to it. And I'm so deeply grateful and honored to get to do this work. So that's a little bit about what got us into it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. I feel like your two backgrounds were perfect and it was interesting, and I resonated so much when you were saying like, you've done your own personal growth work separately, but it's just a whole different thing when you enter into a relationship. But how beautiful that it's like you can take something that can cause so much, suffering and pain, and it's kind of like a mirror reflecting back to you all of your unhealed parts, but when you flip that, like just the amount of joy, and it's like, double that. So yeah, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. Mm-hmm. So what would you say? I know you said like you did conscious date nights. Is that like something that you still kind of subscribe to and help clients through, or what are some other tips and tools that you really seem to kind of like, or patterns I would say that you see with couples that you can kind of help to navigate through?
Yeah, we're so committed to our date nights. And even though we're together all the time, a date night is different. And so that's certainly one thing. We love like ritualizing our connection. And I just think so many of us are busier than ever. And so it's not about like how much time we have, it's how do we like add the quality to the moments we have. So Brett and I, for so many years now, we have like our daily rituals, which we recommend for couples to have like some touch point that maybe is like 15-ish minutes that you can count on, so that no matter how busy the day is, you're coming together in a meaningful way, that it is not about logistics. It's not like, oh, did you call so-and-so? And yeah, are you going to mow the lawn tomorrow? Like that, of course, it happens so innocently. It's so natural. And so for us, we take a walk together every single evening, and it's like logistics free. It's just about us like emotionally connecting and supporting and hearing each other, having fun together. And then we share appreciations about each other from the day. We've been doing that so many years, and it's like the cornerstone of our relationship, because it continually, it's so wonderful to hear what Brett appreciates. And I continually have this thought, like still now, we've been doing this, like really over 10 years now. I'm like, really? That meant something to you? I had no idea. Like, okay, well, I can keep doing that if that mattered to you. And then when I appreciate him, I realize how much I would otherwise miss. It's like only in that moment that I'm scanning for it. I'm like, and thank you so much for, even if it's that same thing he's done 200 times, like to actively appreciate him. So whatever that might be, it can be anything for any couple, but like it can be cuddling for 10 minutes a day, something that you can count on, and then a weekly thing or bi-weekly if necessary. So yeah, we go on a date night every single week. And again, it's just, especially because we work together, this is something that we learned from not doing this, but like to turn off like that part of us, because we are passionate about what we do, and to ask different questions that are much more about what's what we're each dreaming about and what we're really feeling and how we can support each other, like more emotionally connecting conversations. And then, so I think ritualizing things like that, because relationships really are living things and they're always either growing or dying. Like they don't just stay the same. So a relationship that isn't being nurtured is deteriorating, which doesn't mean it can't like improve. But I love that. It's just like, our health or our happiness. It isn't like we eat a healthy meal and then we're healthy, permanently. Relationships are the same thing. So Brett and I are like anybody else. Like we built up a lot of resilience because we've nurtured it so much. And if we just started neglecting it, then if like small things become big things, like it just is more, there's less resilience and less like being like teammates on this great adventure of life. So, I mean, that's one thing I'd say for sure for anyone that's been so huge for us is to always be like nurturing it.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to it. I feel that as a fellow mother, I feel like, I have nurtured my 3 young children so much that I need to be nurtured. And not that I'm not nurtured from them, but it's different. And you also say, okay, we share proximity in the same house. I have a telehealth clinic. He works from the house on Zoom as a personal trainer. So we share the same house, but how many times do we really get a chance to say, hey, I really appreciate what you did, or let's connect. So for us, we find ourselves connecting when we have long car rides with the kids and just catching up. But from what I'm hearing from you is making it even a more conscious decision to make it into a ritual. And I agree with you. I think that I should personally do that in our relationship. So thank you for that.
Well, I love that. Sending you lots of love and support. And it takes such intention. I mean, something that's, I think, so beautiful about a romantic relationship is that like feeling like that, like all these other immediate needs are here. Like, okay, this is still going to keep going, even if I'm not nurturing it. Like it's a beautiful part of it. And then it's also this amazing thing is like, but by nurturing it, life can be so much better. So I honor all the mamas of the world.
Yep. Well, and that makes so much sense too. Like, I love it's a living. So you're either nurturing it or it's dying, and it doesn't, but it's the more that you nurture it, if you're kind of get busy and can't give it the attention, then at least it has that like grow, the nourishment that it needs. So when you get in those busy times, but so often we just kind of, it's just there, the relationship kind of, it's like, oh yeah, and then that's why I think couples all of a sudden they look and they're like, wow, I don't even know how to connect with you anymore right now because we haven't. So yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Yeah. And the appreciation thing, I will say that my husband, Tom, I cleaned out a drawer and he was like, I just want you to know that I really appreciate when you do things like that. And I was like, really? I was like, okay, I'll start doing those. But it's so true. Like, you don't even know. And I mean, like, it was something so little, but it's like knowing what is, really allows your partner to appreciate what you're doing, like allows you to be more conscious of that. And like, okay, I'm going to bring forth more of that. And vice versa, and to be in front of your mind of what you appreciate about the partner. Yeah. Just so many good tips there.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any more tools so we said like appreciation and, relaying the message to your partner. So do you have any more tips and tools on communication and connection for our relationship with the partner, knowing that especially with kids, it's something that can certainly take a back seat if you're not conscious about growing your relationship. So what can be some other things we can do?
Yeah, great question. So communication is, when clients come into the center, they fill out an intake form of kind of like what's bringing them in. And without a doubt, communication is the number one, like kind of no matter what it is. So communication, such a good question because it's really key. And the good news is that the issue itself is so often way more resolvable than we think it is. It's just like how we talk about it. And we've all had the experience of like, we go into a conversation hoping that we're going to have resolution and like, we'll be able to figure this out and we'll feel heard. And then what happens is that it becomes 2 monologues, and we've all been there, like 2 monologues. We're both kind of in our heads, like thinking about what we're going to say next, or feeling defensive, or thinking about how I'm right and you're wrong, or just worried like, oh no, I've done something wrong. Like we're not getting out of our heads and like really dropping into each other's hearts. And so when we don't feel heard, we tend to like turn up the volume. So we use more words, we use stronger words, we get louder, or we check out is like another way we actually turn up the volume, just because we so deeply long to feel heard. So communication is key. And I'd say listening is like the most important part of that, is learning to listen in a new way that allows both of you to feel like deeply, deeply heard. Because when we can like actually hear and see each other, it's rather than like, here's the challenge in the middle of us and we're on either side and we're both just like longing to feel heard. We get to like stand side by side and look at the challenge together. Like, oh, I get you. So the idea when you're listening, it's really about like communicating, you make sense. And even using those words like, oh, I get that. That makes sense. Yeah, like that. Yeah, it sounds like that's really discouraging. So rather than being right or wrong, there's a common saying in the relationship world, like, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy and connected? And so many areas of life. So I think like making emotional connection the most important thing, and like letting go of right or wrong and letting there be like wide open space. Like I know it's, I've been there. I get like if Brett has an upset about something, rather than like, now I've learned just to like hold wide open space for it. And like, it's so actually liberating to do that, rather than thinking if my partner's having a big feeling, I've done something wrong. Or wherever all the places we all go, it's like, oh my goodness, I just get to hear you with a wide open heart. There's space for that. And that makes sense. And then we get to get curious, like nobody is wrong, right? And not getting about like, yeah, but that's not really what happened. Like letting go of the facts, because they don't really exist in relationships. What's most important is like, how did you feel? Like, that's what I want to hear. And it's so extraordinary to me, and working with couples for all these years, that when two partners feel really, really heard, so their partner has offered, a level of empathy and like appreciation, acknowledgement of what they've said, then sometimes the issue just resolves on its own. They're like, oh my gosh, I feel like you never have heard me like you did. Okay, well, yeah, I guess we could just blah, 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 like whatever it is. So I'd say learning how to deeply listen and how to get curious. My three favorite ingredients for communication is empathy. So an empathy before feedback. So it's really easy, whether it's our kids or our partners or our friends, like if they share something that's going on, just to want to jump in with our feedback. Well, yeah, but you should do something, whatever it might be. Or our feedback could be our defensiveness and explaining ourselves, or just any sort of helpful advice, well-meaning advice. But if instead we can just first drop in, like really be with one another in our hearts and experience, that is so bonding. And then appreciation, as we talked about, I think weaving that into communication, is like seeing each other's best intentions. So it's easy, especially with lots of, with kids and just full lives, to like, just like say you got home from work and, the house is a mess. It'd be so easy to just walk right in and be like, oh, you didn't like, look at that mess. You didn't do the laundry yet. Like to zoom in on what isn't working instead of like looking at all the things that are working. So even when we're bringing up like a more delicate thing, leading with like appreciation. I so appreciate that you do this and this and this and this. And I appreciate like your good intentions. Like it's probably because you were just focused on the kids and whatever it might be, like really weaving that in so that we can see each other much more as like allies, not adversaries. And then curiosity, I think for communication is just so tremendous. So if our partner suggests an idea and we're not into it, rather than shooting it down, just like, oh, tell me more. Like, what is it about that lights you up? Or, like going back and forth, just continually getting curious is, I think, so helpful. So those are some things. I think just taking time to communicate, doing like little check-ins, that the small things can get addressed, before they pile up into being much bigger things. But those are, I'll pause there. There's so much I can say about communication.
Why do you think that is? Why do you like everything you said in the list? I was like, okay, if this was my midterm exam or final exam, I would fail it because I'm doing everything you just said not to do on the list. Everything. That said, I'm willing to change. And why do we zoom in on the things that we criticize the partner? Why is that? What's the reason behind it?
Yeah, well, I love your honesty and humility is so beautiful. And that's like how, yes, we all, I know usually it's in our romantic relationship, like our most human selves come out. And, there's a part of it when it comes to our romantic relationship that it impacts us more than anyone else. And so if our friend was late for something, or they didn't follow through on a work assignment, or they lost their job, or they wanted to take off to India for the month, it'd be so easy to be like gracious, forgiving, tell them to go for it. But the more somebody impacts our lives, we perceive them as a threat to whether or not our own needs get met. So if your friend keeps their house a little messy, you're like, I love it. You're just right? We can like so much more easily celebrate it. And if we love order and our partner doesn't like things tidy, it's so much easier to judge it or blame them or shame them or be upset with them about it because it actually impacts us. And so when we like see our partner as a threat to whether or not our own needs get met, we just go to a much more primitive part of our brain, which is much more kind of fight, flight, freeze, faint. We go into that response. So the fight response would be much more kind of going into critical response. So that's one way to see it. And then our brains really are just kind of our negativity bias, like now neuroscientists have really shown that for our survival is really looking for like, okay, what's working, what's not working? Like, is this going to kill me or not? We're not like, oh, well, there's also this like wonderful thing here and here and here. So negative experiences have like immediate impact in our brain, and positive experiences, I've heard varying things, but like 20-ish seconds to actually stick. So unless we pause to actually see those things, what we're going to see is like what's not working. So it takes like training ourselves. That's why Brett and I still to this day, like when we're doing our appreciation ritual, in the midst of a busy life, I would have missed those things if I didn't like pause. I'm like, okay, yes, thank you for doing this. And like, it's like we wake up to it only in that moment of like conscious intent to do it. So it's so innocent and so understandable. And I think it's just that part of us that sees it as more efficient, like that has just kind of bought into the misunderstanding that it's the most efficient thing. It's for me just to go right in with what's not working, when in fact that ends up taking us so much more time and effort. It makes it so much more challenging. And we just stay unaware of actually all the things that are working, because we could have the most beautiful life, most beautiful relationship, but if we don't recognize it as such, we could be miserable and think we have the worst relationship and worst partner. So yes, I know this journey of being human.
Yeah, the neuroscience behind that makes so much sense though. So, and it makes it, I'm sure that helps to explain that too, because you can give yourself a little bit more grace when you know that that's how your brain is wired to work.
Yeah, and knowing that what you explained, Christine, that basically your partner is part of your survival. And so if something is not working in your survival, that's your fight or flight. Like, I got to fix that. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so much that you said too, it's like we have that fertile ground of relationships of our immediate partner, but there's so much that we can extend out to other relationships as well. Like even with with kids, I was thinking like there's so many things, like to focus on the negative there all the time is not going to, it's beautiful that you can start with that like intimate relationship as a couple, but then knowing that all of your relationships are really going to benefit when you can really fully understand how to communicate and hold space for others. So I love that.
That's so wise and so true. We oftentimes hear that from clients is like, I wasn't expecting this, but even like my relationships with my colleagues or my supervisor, certainly their kids, like it just spills over. So great that it's like a transferable skill set in that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And such a amazing place to put it into practice is right there with your relationship. Yeah. So I would love to know more, like with your couples retreats, like what can you expect when you do that? I'm sure that's like, such a intense time to really get to practice these tools and learn.
Yeah, we love it so much leading couples retreats. It's really, a deep dive. And I think for a couples retreat is unique in the sense that, some couples, it can feel kind of scary to reach out for support from a therapist or a relationship coach. Although, of course, it is of the utmost importance to us here is that it's like the safest space imaginable. And I get it. Someone's like, I don't want to reveal all of these like most vulnerable parts of our relationship to someone I've never met. So in that regard, it can be really helpful for people. I'm such an advocate for coaching and therapy. And like our couples retreat is really neat because you're getting to be in this space with all these other couples, which is also so inspiring. It's just like so many other areas of life, our health, our, financial well-being, whatever it might be. It's like when other people around us grow and rise, it calls us forward as well. And so that happens at a retreat. But so we're in this space where others are also growing and like committing to taking their relationship to the next level. And Brett and I will kind of guide people through a concept. We love having it be whole brain. So really speaking about the research and the science behind it, and then also bringing in the heart and the emotions of it, because we realize partners, it's one of the things that can really separate partners. Is someone's like longing for emotional connection. Someone else is like, I'm flooded. Just speak it to me in a way that's like really clear and concise. And so we're wanting to like integrate all of that and speak to all those parts of us. And so we'll share a concept. We've developed so many different tools over the years. And so we'll share like a communication tool, for example, and then couples on their own, just between the two of them in their own little like love bubble, they'll actually process it. And then we have graduates from our relationship coach certification program that are at the ready. If someone like, has a question and wants like kind of laser coaching, but otherwise they can maintain a lot of privacy and intimacy between just the two of them. And then we're available, of course, for questions. And we always have couples come up in demo, which is usually people's favorite part. Is like, we'll kind of explain the concept. We'll guide people through the tool. We'll demo it between the two of us. And then we'll invite a couple to come up who wants to receive like real-time coaching. And it is like usually so captivating because we see ourselves in one another. It's so universal. We've been so privileged to support couples like across, so many different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, like you name it, ages. And it's so universal what we experience. And so we can see ourselves so much more clearly by witnessing a similar pattern play out in another couple. And so couples like become so much more bonded when they watch other couples like, oh my goodness, that's us. And they're all like cheering each other on. And so it's so beautiful witnessing couples kind of have breakthroughs. And then the couple goes through. We just guide this whole process. It's really meant to be bonding because we know so many couples are just missing time together. And so it's like filling up their love account. So we love talking about the love account that exists, between every couple. And we want to always be filling it up. And so just filling that up and then also having conversations about how to like really heal from past hurts that are still, affecting us and creating resentment, and how to communicate in new ways, and how to have a breakthrough around those, long-standing conflicts, and how to create secure attachment, and how to navigate and harmonize our differences. That is so common in relationships. Like we're usually drawn to someone that actually is different and balances us, but over time, those can become the greatest source of conflict. So, and how to create this inspiring vision of our future together. So we really lay out the entire roadmap of like what we wish every couple on the planet knew about relationships and the things that have made the biggest impact for us. And it's very engaging, very experiential and embodied, but it's completely optional how much you want to share with a larger group. So again, there's like that element of getting to like really be a part of this experience, which is different than doing like an online course, which is also wonderful. But you're really at home in the privacy, whereas you're in a room, but you don't, and you're having these like experiences and watching transformation happen, and you can ask questions, but you can also really be bonded, just the two of you together. So those are some things we like to keep infuse lots of fun in it too.
Brooke and her husband and my husband and I may show up.
Right.
We would love to have you.
Well, you made such a good point too, that like, and I feel like this as well, like a lot of times you're kind of hesitant to go to and do like one-on-one coaching or counseling because it's like, well, nothing's really needs fixed or is broken. But in the sense, that's not really the point at all. It's, it's more to make it so it doesn't get to that point and to completely nourish it. So I can see, and just the power, so much of what you're saying, like just with being like health coaches, like I feel like it's that same thing, like the power of group and really being able to like see yourself in another person and just like, oh, I'm not the only one that feels that way. And yeah, and really filling up like your love account just as if you would your health account by being Yeah. Making those choices every single day that make a difference. Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah, there's such a need for all these different areas of life. I'm so grateful for what you do around health and wellness and all the many amazing things.
Well, it just shows that everything's so connected, and like how you do anything is how you do everything. And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I acknowledge you, Christine, for mentioning the socioeconomical different background and cultural background. I wasn't raised in the US, and yet I married an American guy. The cultures are very different. So even though he has been to my country before as a tourist, he got to know where I'm from and how we communicate. So we are louder. I'm from Israel with a background of, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. We are louder, much louder. So at times it would seem like I'm arguing with my mom. I'm not arguing with mom. That's just how we convert from love, which is really different. And so me making a point to my husband may sound like we're arguing. We're not. It's a very direct communication. There's no, I don't know, you say in English, one in my mouth, one in my heart, none of that. Everything is going to be out there. Here it is. Now let's deal with it. So how do you navigate through a different culture than yours? How do you access that?
Yes. So beautiful that the two of you are navigating that, and I'm sure learning so much that you wouldn't otherwise learn. So that, obviously really is different cultural backgrounds. And even though people that look from the surface that they come from a similar American background, for example, religious background, we still have like culture that we were raised with and kind of beliefs we have about how things should be. So that it's highlighted those. I totally hear what you're saying. So it is just start. We use this expression, wonder and look under. And so it's really easy for us to create a story in a millisecond, right? Our partner acts in a certain way. We create a story around it. We believe that story as if it's true, and then we're reacting to the story. And so it's like doing kind of the unpacking to realize like what's actually underneath, like the needs that are underneath it, what we're really trying to say, our more vulnerable feelings underneath those feelings, like understanding so that we have that kind of X-ray vision. So I would say that kind of getting to know what's really underneath it, and then also learning how it lands for each other. And so, a really common dynamic in relationships is a pursue-withdraw dynamic. So pursue dynamic is not about that you're sexually pursuing or that you're more invested in the relationship. It's more kind of what you're saying, Noah, is that it's like, I want to keep pursuing this conversation until it's resolved. Like, let's just get it all out there. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay. So that's where the pursuer's longing for connection. And again, we can like relax once we feel like it's resolved. So a pursuer is going to be a little more inclined to follow their partner into the other room. The partner's like trying to get away from the conversation. We'll follow them, tends to like speak a little more loudly, maybe use more direct language. It could come across as being nagging, critical, accusatory to our partner. It's even if that's not intended, that's how it's going to land. And then a withdrawer tends to obviously kind of step back. And what a withdrawer is doing, it's like a different nervous system response, but the withdrawer is actually after connection as well. They're thinking, well, gosh, when I come closer to you right now, things are not going well. So I'm going to actually back off in order to preserve and hold on to any remaining connection we have. Like, I'm going to come back around when things settle down. Of course, what happens in this dynamic is like, as the withdrawer withdraws, the pursuer, starts to feel even more activated. And so pursues even more. And the withdrawer is like, I can't do anything right here. You're like, I'm never going to be enough. I feel totally unseen, unappreciated. So I'm just going to shut down, not even consciously, just starts to shut down because the withdrawer doesn't feel safe to emotionally engage with the pursuer. And so, some couples are withdraw, some are pursue. And there's gifts and challenges in all of them. Pursue, withdraw is definitely the most common dynamic. And so I'm sharing it in this context, but I think it's relevant to what you're saying, because that's like a cultural difference. And it's so easy. Like when a withdrawer withdraws, the pursuer tends to interpret that as, you don't care. I'm in this alone. Like you don't even appreciate me. I just have to do it all on my own. And so that's not really what's happening. But the withdrawer kind of has a belief is like, I can never do enough for you. Like, I'm never going to get it right. You think I'm a terrible person. Maybe it's even feeling shame or guilt or embarrassment or just totally lost. And so we misinterpret, what we react to our partner's reactions with our own reactions, when underneath the surface, there are like these more tender things. So in this case, the pursuer so often is like longing for engagement. Like, that's actually what relaxes us. Like, I want to know you're with me in it. Like, actually, in the moment that you withdraw, I long for you to lean in. And so it's like, the withdrawal or learning like what we actually need. So learning with our partner, like what we actually need in that moment. And then also recognizing, oh, this is what's happening. Like, the pursuer is just having anxiety and fear coming up. They don't really think I'm a terrible person. They just need me to lean in, and they need to know that I'm with them in it right now. And I hear them, and we've got this. Like, the pursuer is just longing for security, and the withdrawer, rather than seeing them, through the more critical lens, perhaps, they're longing to be appreciated. Like, that's what's going to melt them and soften them and help them re-engage. And so it's like either person kind of end these patterns, but it's that combination of knowing what we can do differently. So if Brett is withdrawing, I know if I just go rub his back, if I talk more softly, if I just like appreciate him, like, he'll like re-engage, And so it's like knowing like, taking responsibility for how we land for each other. And then also, like in your case, like your partner knowing like, okay, you don't mean harm. So it's like maybe approaching him in a way that his nervous system can receive more readily. And also him learning like what you actually need in that moment. So we can both get invested in meeting each other's needs. And what tends to happen when we have differences culturally and in communication styles, we tend to double down on the thing that isn't working and do that even more. And it tends to be the opposite of what works. So in this case, right, the pursuer wants more than anything for their partner to engage, and they withdraw. And the withdrawer longs for more than anything for their partner to soften and like be more positive. And the pursuer gets even more critical. So I don't know, does that answer kind of that question a bit?
Yeah. Brooke, does it answer yours? I see you smiling.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense that like,
Right.
It's like you're trying to resolve this, but really what it's doing is like, pulling it apart more and more. So yeah, that makes absolute sense. I'm curious on trust in a relationship and restoring that, because when you look at like all of the problems or things like infidelity or just anything that is going to completely, or financial trust, like it's a hard thing to gain back, I would say. I guess from your experience, do you feel that it is possible? Because I think a lot of people say it's just not, like, it's just like when it reaches that point, like you just can't. But just what your experience is with working with couples with that, and if there's anything that you feel is absolutely critical or necessary to really regain that trust.
Yeah. So anybody tuning in that's been in that place, just a whole lot of love and empathy. It's such a tender place to be in. And definitely one of the, big reasons people reach out for support in their relationship is because, they feel like their trust has been betrayed on some sort of level. And so, yes, absolutely, positively, trust can be restored as long as both people are willing and committed and engaged in the process. And particularly the person who, may have, violated the other person's trust, like for them to especially be kind of all in. And so the beautiful thing when these painful experiences occur is that it is what inspires people to reach out for support. So couples that are just kind of coasting, which is lovely, and we can just like coast. We might not ever actually dive in and learn how to create an amazing relationship. Like, right, for Brett and I, it was that moment of, do we separate? And so many couples, it's that moment of big rupture and questioning the relationship that they actually then make it better than ever before. So our paradigm, like our hope, what we really are advocates for when we're working for people, of course, we totally bless and support people if they're just, if they both choose not to be in the relationship. But otherwise, we're like, we are here to show up for you wholeheartedly. So at this difficult moment, that on the other side, it's like things are really stronger than ever before. It's not just about going back. It's like, let's clean up all the areas, that like created a kind of a leak where this could occur, and like just really restore trust and create this vibrant relationship. So I would say the different components is radical responsibility. Usually for someone to be able to feel like they can trust their partner again, there are some key components. So one is their partner taking radical responsibility. So if their partner is like, yeah, I only did that because you haven't been available and you've been so focused on the kids, the other partner is going to feel like they need to like really hold on to this resentment, this pain, this hurt, continually remind their partner of how much it hurt them because they don't feel like they really get it. And it doesn't give them security. It's like, well, if you're not owning this, then what are the chances of you preventing it? Like someone like really owning, like I fully own that I created this experience. And of course, looking at like how it could have been co-created, but really first making sure that person really owns their role, having deep empathy for their partner. So again, one partner will feel like they keep needing to get louder with their pain and their hurt, frustration, anger, rage, all the things. If they feel like their partner hasn't held this wide open space for them to feel their feelings to completion. And so, if we're like, you haven't heard me, I'm not going to let this go because I want to convince you just how painful this was. And so having like deep empathy and what's so beautiful is working with couples, I always just like kind of prep the person who's going to be the space holder to receive their partner's emotions and assure them that we might think like, oh no, this is like such a big emotion, but in actually allowing it, the emotions then can dissipate. And of course, doing that in a healthy kind of container. And then somebody kind of having a plan for what you're going to do differently. For a lot of people, that's really important. Like this happened. What are we going to set up differently so that this doesn't happen in the future? Understanding is a really huge part. These are kind of the 5 pieces. Understanding what happened, like why did this occur? So maybe they want their partner to do some individual growth and healing or do work together in the relationship, because that gives people a lot of peace. Like, okay, well, if I understand why this occurred, how this could have happened, it gives me like more comfort and to know that like, okay, it lessens our chances of it happening again. And then also how the partner can kind of make it up to them. So not only having a plan for the future, but given this happened, here's how I want to make it up to you. And then there's usually some immediate trust building things and then longer term. So immediately it's so unique to each couple, but there may be like, can you just help? If we're in the same room, can you have your phone out so I can always see it? Now, 5 years from now, that might not be what you need, but it's kind of like a way to communicate to your partner, I am all in. I am all in. It's kind of like high value, high risk. Like I am giving it all really to demonstrate my love, rather than someone getting defensive. Like, I don't need to give you that. It's like, no, just get all in. So seeing someone demonstrating this high level of commitment is usually like such a green lights. And because we all do things on this journey, right? That just this lifelong earth school. And so I so believe, that's one of the things I've become just a wholehearted believer of is like the human capacity for healing and transformation individually and in our partnership. As long as we're committed to it, it's extraordinary what's possible.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like when we reach rock bottoms, that can be such the beautiful place where we can start to build something even bigger and better. So of course that would be true for relationships too. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. I often come across couples that feel a lot of regret around them needing to get a divorce. And practicing spirituality for so long, I always look at it from it had to happen in order for maybe you meeting the love of your life, your true soulmate. So you did the work, the practice run before the actual race, or you two brought a beautiful child into the life of, those two human beings. And that could be why you had to meet for that outcome to happen. What would you say to couples who have gone through divorce and need to get into a new relationship, but still have some regret or about how things have ended or why it had to end in the first place?
Yeah. So someone has actually gone through divorce and it feels so for couples they've already gone through divorce and it just feels like something's unresolved. And especially if they are going to be co-parenting together, people will come into our office and have sessions around this. And so some of the things that are really helpful is actually appreciating each other for all the ways that you grew, all the things that you learned from one another and from the relationship. And that can be so empowering, even internally, to create like a meaning around it, that like propels us forward and upward. I think sharing regrets that we have about the relationship, like knowing what I know now, what I would have done differently can be so healing for both people because, we can really carry with us like our guilt around like, oh my gosh, now I've like read these books or I've gone to this seminar and I can't believe like if I had known then, like it really would have all worked out. We hear that a lot from people that are even with one partner and they'll say like, oh, I think probably my marriage would have lasted before this, or coaches in our program, it brings up a lot for people, which can be a lot to face into, for if we realize like we suddenly have this awakening and we realize that it really could have gone, that again, it's not an absence of love. And so, and then having a vision for the future, so if you're already in different relationships and maybe you're wanting to parent, I think just getting on the same page is like, yeah, if anything was possible, what is our dream for how we'd love our relationship to look and how we want to show up for each other. So I think that sort of clarity and like co-creating some agreement, like we want to be kind and respectful and never speak unkindly about each other to our kids, or like getting on the same page, because so often, even though our strategy sometimes can be differently, so often we humans want the exact same thing. We want to be appreciated. We want to be heard. We want to be honored. We want to be talked positively about. And what happens is like, if our partner or our ex-partner is doing one thing, again, we can react to their own pain and fear and triggers with our own pain and fear and triggers. And instead, like letting there be space for both of us to be deeply honored, I think is so beautiful. So those are some things somebody could certainly do, and could do any sort of healing process. Of course, if there's a particular hurt that wasn't resolved, processing that together, if they're both, willing to do that.
Yeah,
I would, yeah. And I would think even if the other person isn't at a place where they can kind of receive that or take in those lessons, or like even being able to kind of manage your own reactions to certain things is still going to help what their reaction is. Like, even if it's not coming from a two-sided place, even to have that one side that's coming from kind of an elevated space, and consciousness, I get that you're still going to see, some transformation in how you're communicating.
Absolutely. And there are some couples, if they got divorced and then learned new things and grew, and they're both still single or available for relationship, there are many couples that will get back together, and it makes so much sense. It's like a reset. Really, over the course of a relationship, we have many relationships. Like when I look back at my relationship with Brent 15 years ago, and this is the good news. Like if we freeze frame any particular chapter, it does not reflect the totality of who we can be together. And so, so I know that's not the case for some couples, but that also makes so much sense that people will actually get remarried. And it's just this powerful like recommitment and aligning with who we are now and who we want to be. So it's a good pattern interrupt, sometimes separating.
Yeah, that's a good pattern interrupt. I've heard that's so necessary sometimes, and so beautiful that can still.
Do you feel sometimes, Christine, that working with Brent can be a disadvantage? Can you reveal it on the air?
Yeah, I'll share anything. We're so open about our relationship. It was a big learning curve for sure. And I would say the number one thing that now it's so wonderful because we have committed like fully all in on a strengths-based relationship. And so we just didn't know. And we have very different strengths, really different strengths. And so, at a business meeting, if we had like a business meeting, I would be like, I'm much more like the list maker and like, okay, I'll do this and I'll follow through on this. And, and Brett, so his strength is that he's totally like trusts life. He trusts that it's all going to work out. Like if we're not prepared, it's going to be okay. And I was raised by parents that have like plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so that's just like how I was like, I'm like hardwired to have like, just like things prepared and planned and organized. And so we discovered like, that's one difference, for example, that was like a pretty strong difference between the two of us. And so that did not go over super well in like approaching things from a business perspective. And so from a strengths-based perspective, we've realized like, oh my goodness, like the very thing that we would find challenging about each other is like the very thing we love so much. Like I love that part of Brett with all my heart and soul. Like I wouldn't want him to be any other way. It has taught me so much about just being spontaneous and just like it like really does all work out, And now I'm like, oh, I'll do the planning. I do like lots of the coordinating and planning because I like love it. I can bliss out on like some of that stuff and some of like the creative stuff I really love. And then in the moment, if it's like loading things to go to a workshop, he is like all in and teaching together. So we've really found the places where we really match up together. And then we've noticed the places where we less match up. And when it comes to planning and organizing, that isn't our strength. And if we kept trying to make that work, it just like, it's going to just put us out of our flow. And what actually brought us together is much more like enjoying, like our spiritual connection is actually like, that's what first brought us together is like, we feel so spiritually connected. And so emotionally, when it comes to like emotional processing, like that we're so connected. And so not only like, is this creating like tension, we then miss out at all these places where we do meet up. And so the beautiful thing is that usually the very thing our relationship needs in order to be better is the very thing we as ourselves need to be better. And so it's like, oh, our relationship requires us to highly prioritize fun and to highly prioritize like relaxation and like spiritual moments together. Like, well, that's a pretty good deal. And so like, let's just be both of us in our strengths. In other areas, hire a team. I mean, that's what we did. We ended up hiring a team to like fill these other roles who like are flourish in these different areas. And then the most important thing for us to do is, go with like, not only do we individually, each human, like we have our own strengths, each relationship has the areas where we all shine. And some couples, it is actually logistically, it's like they are like a team and they're so great at that. And spiritually, it could be a constant source of pain if they're always looking to meet up there. So it's like, oh, maybe find other connections there and like really go with like where we shine. And so Brett and I have discovered like to support each other where we shine and not judge each other for that, to realize like there's this beautiful thing on the other side and deeply appreciate each other for that. So we feel seen, not as lacking anything, as being whole and complete and glorious and teachers for each other. And then also see where our relationship like does its best and spend as many moments as possible there. So that's been key for us running a business together.
It's a great insight, Christine.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just the priorities of your relationship and where can you spend more time in those places where, you connect. And you have it's when you're running a business like such, you have no choice but to practice what you preach. And, like if you've got to maintain that connection. So how beautiful that you are able to fully embody everything that you teach. Yeah. No, yeah. Do you have any last questions for Christine or?
No, Christine, you're super inspiring. I'm not joking. Like I may book something with you guys. You're just your aura. I mean, you guys will see it on YouTube. Your aura, you're like a shining, beautiful soul that came to bless us. I really thank you for your time and for everything you do. Thank you.
It is such a deep honor and joy to get to connect with the two of you. Thank you so much for all of you do and all the people that you support and serve in so many ways. It has just been, such a pleasure to get to connect with you both. And thanks so much to everyone for tuning in and all of us all of us forever students learning how to increase our capacity, right? To love and be loved.
100%. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you both. So many.